Howdy everybody, welcome to video 5 in the build series of the Composite ARF F100 or CARF F100 aircraft. We're making some wicked progress. Last video we got our chute mechanism done. If you didn't see that, check it out. Lots of detail there, so lots still to do on the details of the aircraft. So in this video, we're going to start off with the wiring in the back end, get that stuff sorted out, and then we're going to move into the lights that need to get installed in the main fuselage. So lots of lights still need to be installed in here and lots of detail work. So let's dive back in. All right, so we're jumping around a little bit here, guys. I just finished printing these clamps here. So these are 10mm clamps. And this is what we're using to secure the rods and also the tank to the rods. So what I've done here is, I'll pull this one off and show you. So what I've done here is installed a heat insert. So this is a 3mm heat insert. So we have had to drill these out a little bit. This isn't my design. I pulled this off Thingiverse and I'm just modifying it. So drilled this side out, installed the heat insert, and then we just have a 3mm button head going through on this side. So those are great setups. They're very nice. What we ended up using on the some of the other aircraft, like the Atom that we've installed a fuel containment device in, the CARF Rebel Classic that we installed the fuel containment device in. So both of those were using an 8mm rod, and we had one, the clamps were like ones where the bolt actually pushes against the rod. So this is a little bit better design, and the larger bags use this style better because there's more space for this to sit and the bag not to come in contact with this. So if I had the 8mm size in this, I'd probably end up using it, and I could just downsize these guys as well. So we'll see though. But these are working great. So I'm going to get the rest of these modified so we're able to use them in this aircraft. So to do this, I've taken one of my really old soldering irons. This tip here is just jammed over. This is the tip that actually came with the threaded inserts. So I just take one of these threaded inserts, put it over the tip, and that is quite hot. So we're going to let that little threaded insert that's sitting there get nice and warm. And I'm just finding which side I actually drilled out. And now once that tip is all hot, we can just take it and basically jam it in there like that. And there we go. That is that. Okay, so I'm just going to take my my 3mm button head here. We're just going to thread that in and clean up those threads a little bit. There's a little bit of residue inside there. There we go. And that is our clamp. So we're nice and clean, everything's good to go. All right, so just kind of figuring out how we're going to power our lights. Now the packages for these guys said 12 volts on them. Now the other style of Unilite afterburner lights, the ones with all the little cooling fins all the way around the back, I think those are designed for 8 volts or 12 volts. These ones, I hooked them up to a 2-cell LiPo and they were quite dim. So now I've hooked them up to a 3-cell LiPo and they are much brighter. So yeah, they basically need 12 volts. And the reason I was doing that is I wanted to see how we're going to set our battery situation up on this plane. So to give you an example, we are going to have 3 batteries, 3-cell LiPos, all 4000s, same packs. So 2 feeding the central box, 1 feeding the turbine. Now we've got a whole bunch of different systems to power as well. So the first thing we have is the afterburner setup at 3-cell LiPo, so 12 volts. Now the second system to power is our landing gear. That is also 12 volts because it's the ER50NGs, so those require 12 volts. The third system to power is our standard Unilite setup. So what I'm going to do with this whole situation is I'm going to power the turbine and the landing gear together. The landing gear draws almost no power. So that's number one. Number two is I'm going to have one of the central box batteries pair off or tee off, power the afterburner lights and central box. And then 3, we're gonna have the third battery tee off. That's gonna power the lighting system. Now it's gonna go through an SBEC or a BEC, B-E-C, first to drop it to 8 volts or 2-cell LiPo, and then feed the lighting system. So that's the setup that we're gonna be using, and pretty much decided on that now. That's why I needed to get the afterburner rings plugged in to see what kind of voltage they need. So that's good, everything's good. Now I have powered a Unilite setup through the central box before. It was a bit more of a lower voltage type setup, so less lights. All the lights on this plane are quite large, and there's a lot of lights on here. So I'm going to provide it with separate power just for that reason. But like, to give you an example here, here's our one of our top strobes. There's another top light, a bottom light that kind of matches this one. We've got wing lights, the drop down landing lights, top wing lights, rear lights. So there's lots of lighting equipment going on this plane. So now our afterburners are good. The other reason to do that is this is going to be living in the back end. So I wanted to see how we're going to be running these other leads forward. So still working on the wiring for the back end, but we are going to jump all over the place a little bit because we need to get stuff glued and let it wait. So I've installed my 2 Ashlock holders here. I'm still working on getting these on the website, but these should be on the website soon. So that's where all of our connections are going to come to. So all of our wiring in the back end is 24 pins. So that's handled by 2 Ashlock connectors there. So I was just working on where to install all of our equipment in the front end of this aircraft. So I have the layout done here, and basically our central box is going right there. And so that part's done. The reason I'm getting this done is because I need to do a little bit of sanding on the fuselage right here, 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 here. And we've got the central box mounted to some aircraft ply blocks, and those blocks will get high soled down. So that's where that's going. Gear controller, that can get Velcroed in place. So that's gonna go right there. Gyro is gonna get mounted to one of our 3D printed plates. And just for simplicity, structure, etc., we're gonna put the gyro right there. It's a gap opening right there so we can see the controller for, or the arm for the steering, but it's a nice central solid mounting point that will work out very well, I think, right there. So, and our arm, you got to remember, goes on the underside of this plate system. So that's where we're going to mount the gyro. The other stuff, pretty straightforward. Did drill a hole through one of our lower gun ports here. So I drilled a 1/8 hole through there. Our pitot tube's going to go in that gun port, and we can have our pitot sensor right there. So pretty simple layout on this aircraft because it's such a big wide open area, and you're pretty much putting everything right here. Now when you do the canopy, we're going to glue the canopy glass here soon as well too. This part of the canopy and the cockpit and everything kind of just stays there. So really it's a bit of a non-issue for everything back here. But when you're doing battery installation, etc., this front part of the canopy comes off. So you pull your pins out of the front lifts up, this pulls out, and this front canopy also helps to hold the back canopy in. So it's definitely intertwined, but you'll be able to see everything that we need to see in this front section. So good access to everything. And then of course batteries are right here on the tray. So this gives good access to the front portion for everything that we need. I just want to take a moment and give a shout out to my friend Rob from Australia and his late wife Julie and him, big fans of the channel. And Rob was working on an F-16 all scratch built when his wife passed away, and he had successfully maidened the F-16 yesterday. Beautiful job on the aircraft, Rob. You did an amazing job on it, and congratulations on getting it airborne. And I'm very happy that the maiden went successful. And just working out our wiring here for the back end. So I spent a bunch of time running everything to this location, to our holders here for our Ashlocks. You can see there we've got everything run nicely. We're using kind of a combination of mostly these little clips that we get from Amazon, and also some 3D printed guys here that we use zip ties on right there. So just getting all of our wiring done up here. You can see how we have the first Ashlock connector done up. I'm keeping this as minimal as possible. So making it nice and tight. The other thing I'm doing is pulling these wires out once I get them sized, do my connections here, push the connections back through, and then we'll install that. Now, these connectors or holders do have a slot in them, but because of the way we installed this one, that's how we're forced to do it. So anyways, this one's done, this 12 pin, and we'll do up this guy. So I did make my little legend here before I ran all the wires, so we knew exactly how everything was going to be laid out. All right, wiring and back end is complete. So we've got all of our little cable holders. We put some E6000 or shoe goop on those guys. These guys are in place, we're labeled, we're run, connected, tied down, everything's good to go. The only thing we're waiting on is our balls for the elevators. So that is the final step here to get that done. But that's awesome. So also painted our chute doors this morning. So we painted those in black. So those are all done. So we'll get those installed just so they're done and in place and everything. So let's put those guys in. But other than that, the back end is complete. Now this high saw we glued this guy down with earlier it's starting to firm up, so I want to leave the fuselage for a little while longer before we flip it or to do anything like that. So we will continue on with the wiring, and I'm going to make up our wire leads that run from these connectors forward. Now this stuff's pretty straightforward because elevator, lock, afterburner power, chute, rudder, light 1 and light 2. Basically all of that stuff needs to run forward. So if we just do up our master wiring harnesses to go from this location on the fuselage and run those guys all the way forward to our various locations here, we can get that stuff figured out. Now, because we've got our wires coming down this side of the fuselage, I'm probably going to mount our lighting controller in this area as well too, just so it's all in this this spot and we don't have to go crazy on the wiring. So that'll be the next thing we move forward with. So generally when I am figuring out my wire lengths in a scenario like this, I will unroll a bunch of my roll of wire, and I know where those connectors are on the fuselage. So we're down in this location here. So I'm just going to run this on the outside of the fuselage, and we will basically map that out where we need to go. So I know that we need to come up to here essentially, because we need to clear all of our formers that we put in for the fuel system. And that brings us there. Okay, so this length right here brings us to this point. So from there, I'm just going to run down. We'll leave those guys a little bit long so we've got some playroom. So that gets me my length of wiring. Now I'm expecting to cut off some on this end, so I'm going to do all of these connectors on this end individually. But at least now we know our wire length, and always add a little bit extra on there just to make sure that you're covered. So our wiring's done, got our chute fit and installed. So I had to do a little bit of fitting on the side here, sanding out the wood housing and stuff to make these doors open and close, but otherwise, perfection. That's awesome. So that worked out good. Our locks are good. We sanded down our plywood blocks here. So when we go to close this, of course it's all servo operated, but you kind of just give it some nice fit, and then the servo closes it, and it's a nice solid fit. So one of the key things we're looking at when we do this is we want to have no gap here on the front end, so which it's not. These are almost recessed past these guys, so there's no air that's going to catch this and open this up. And then the other important thing is when we open these doors and reload the chute, we want to make sure the chute's coming right here in this area. So I may actually put a little bit of a groove right here just so our cable has an out path. What I'm thinking about is if the cable is coming out in between these doors and it happens to sit over top of this door, it's not going to open properly. So if we add a little groove right here, that'll make sure that the cable is not interfering with the door operation. So I'll take my probably my Dremel and a really small bit, and we'll just add a little V right there. All right, so made up our cable here for the chute. So it's screwed down into the plate that we added there. That's the like 3/8 or 1/4 inch aircraft ply. We're screwed down, come through the little piece there, and then now this will run sideways down the fuselage like this and into the chute mechanism. So we can just tuck that in there now, and that'll be out of the way waiting for our chute. All right, so our cable is all run down here. The nice thing about this cable is you can put some like kind of manipulation bends into it. So yeah, it follows the path very nicely, so that's good. We've got a little slot here for the cable to come out. So I made a slot on the fuselage, slot on the door, slot on that receiver portion. So there's pretty much a specific spot for that cable to go out, which is great. So that's done. Now I think the next thing to do is to put the horizontal stab on. I don't see why not. While we've got the wires easily to, you know, access and everything, I think it kind of makes sense. Now, the only downside to that is I don't know if we have access, good access, with this bolted to the fuselage. So we'll figure that out, but at least at this point we can get the horizontal stab installed, which allows us to put our wires back in for the chute mechanism. So I know we're jumping around a lot, but it just kind of makes sense at this point to get that done. So I'm going to pull these wires out, and we'll grab a horizontal stab and bolt it up. Should be pretty straightforward. Everything's kind of pre-done. The carbon and everything has everything spaced out, so it's I'm assuming it's just going to bolt down with some Loctite, and that's basically it. We did fasten or tighten the nuts from the top side just to make sure they were already tight, so that is good. All right, one of our viewers sent us the manual. Didn't know the manual existed, but we got the manual, and it's pretty basic. Just shows some pictures and some basic things, but one of the things that we needed to do was trim the rear piece here before we put our horizontal stab on. So these arms and rods and stuff, they come quite close to the bottom of the fuselage, so that's why we have to trim that. I've done that. And instead of going straight across there, you can see it back there. Now I didn't use a Dremel for that. I just used a rasp or a hand file and just shaped that by hand. I don't have a 90-degree Dremel bit, so and this works quite well. It's very aggressive. So anyways, we've got that trimmed down. So now we can fit our horizontal stab on. All right, horizontal stab is bolted on. Everything looks good. I think we'll have enough clearance here for our rods. If not, we may have to do a bit more sanding, but that's not a big deal. We can take care of that. So obviously we use Loctite when we're bolting these guys down. There's not a lot of the bolt that sticks through, but the metal pieces that this screws into, they do have a stop. So you don't want to be changing these fasteners out to something longer, otherwise they're going to cause some damage. So use the stock stuff. Neutral is marked here. So this is 13 millimeters up from the fuse joint right there. That comes from the manual, so I've marked that out. We'll just leave the tape on there so until we get everything set up, but that is marked. It's nice and solid as well too. It's not like super floppy, so there's nice solid bearings in there, which is really nice. Yeah, that's impressive. So now that that's done, we'll put our rods back through for our chute mechanism and get that relocked. All right, so I'm thinking that we can get the pipe installed here, and as long as we've got our servo arms installed here, we're gonna be able to reach in here and get our bolts done up. So I've taken a look at the manual, some of the online stuff in RC Universe. It looks like a 1-inch arm is what we're after. Now, if we take these MKS arms and install them here, we can't leave them at 1.25 inches because they would hit each other. So the 1-inch makes more sense, and that's kind of what it looks like on RC Universe. So we're just gonna get these guys installed, which means plugging the servos in, getting them centered. So at least these are centered and sort of matched and prepared and ready to go when our ball joints show up. All right, so elevator arms are installed, they're centered. Now these arms, because they're in a fixed position, they're a little bit off. So I tried flipping them around to get the best position. So what I did was, one was off this way, one was off this way. So I added 10 points of sub trim to one, 10 points of sub trim to the other, and we're essentially centered right now. I think we've got more travel than we actually need, but at least it's set up and good to go. So now when we get our rods and stuff, we should be able to reach in there and bolt those guys in. We've also fastened down our chute door system and put some Loctite on that bolt, so that is installed and done as well. All right, wiring harnesses are done up going to the front section. So we have, obviously all of our wires are in shrink tube. We put these together, we've got them all labeled. So when I run this through the snake skin, what I do, like in a case like this, with the bottom one, you've got 4 wires that are all the same. I've marked those wires, so once we run them through the snake skin, we can mark them easily. I don't like to put the tape on the ends or anything and try and run them through the snake skin. So we've got nothing, 1 mark, 2 marks, 3 marks. Those are matched up on the other end, run them through the snake skin, and then once everything's set up, we can just put our label on here for what is what. So these are all too long, they're all going to run to the front part of the fuselage, but at least now we can run these guys in the fuselage. Now we're almost ready to put this together, but we have some stuff to do first. So we do lose access, of course, to our tank section once this back part of the fuselage is on. So what I'm thinking about doing is getting our wiring done for all of our other items first, and probably getting our fuel bag installed, so then we've got good access to all of our clamps. Once the fuel bag's installed, then we can probably bolt the back part of the fuselage on. Now our turbine mounting, that's all done previously. Wing mounting, I think our wing wires are going to come through in this area right here, I'm pretty sure. So I don't think that's going to be an issue at all. So if we take a look at the wings, there's the main wing tube. Here's the front locating pin here, right there. So I'm not sure if we're going to end up on this side of the carbon or this side of the carbon. I suspect we're going to be on this side, so probably just in front of the main wing tube is where we're going to end up, so right in this area right here. So what that means is our wires are going to come through in this area. So when we actually get the wires fed through, right in front of this seam right here is the air brake. Right behind is underneath the tank. So we'll have a decent amount of access or room there to get in there and do what we need to do. So I'm not worried about the wires for the wings, but we want to get our lights installed on the top portion of this fuselage next. So we've got 1 light going here, 1 light going, I think right here. We'll have to double check that. But that is where the lights are going to go. Once we get those lights done and the other wiring done, then we can possibly bolt the fuselage together. All right, so we got our fuselage unilights installed. Now, these are not overly tricky. You just have to be kind of smart and really careful about how you install these guys. The bottom one I thought was going to be the most challenging because there's a carbon tube right here. So I basically drew a slot, cut the slot. This light fits right in that carbon tube, which is awesome. So when I glue these things down, I like to try and get the actual light glued down with some CA initially, and then the light housing I glue down with E6000. So this material right here works very well. The nice thing about it is it cleans up nicely. So you get a little bit on the reflector here, the lens, and you just rub it off. But we've got a nice bead around there, so that's all good to go. Just going to tape that guy down, and then all of our lights on the fuselage are good to go. You can see the pitot tube here as well too. So generally I would leave just the tip of the pitot tube sticking out. On this one I left the side ports open as well too. So a little bit of a different install for us, but because it's so invisible down here, it should be good. Yes, I know that's not an amazing spot for a pitot tube, but it works well. And ultimately, What we use the pitot tubes for most is for landing speed. So the actual airspeed really is irrelevant. With our sports jets, for example, I was just flying my Picaro 2.0 a few days ago, and like you can be in landing phase on that guy at about 55 miles an hour, and it's just rock solid. So absolutely awesome. All right, so wiring is all run from the back portion here to the front. We've got these 3D keepers that we printed, and those are all what we used because they're more solid and you can fit larger amounts in there. These guys only work up to a certain amount. So that is run all the way forward. We've got snakeskin on everything, so everything's protected. Our lights up top there, snakeskin on the back one, and just pulled the tape off the Unilights that we installed. So this guy was a nice one because we put the lens on the light, glued it in place, and then stuck the light in from the underside, and got just the right size hole done up there. So that turned out really nice. I'm happy with that. This guy here, light goes from the bottom, and then the actual lens gets installed from the top. So that one turned out very nice as well. So happy with both of those guys. Now that we're at this point is to get our fuel containment device installed. The reason we're doing that now is because once we put this back portion of the fuselage on, this becomes a little bit trickier going through the hatch here. It's still possible, but why not do things when we can have better access? So that is ready to go. So pretty straightforward on that. Just gonna get that in place. Obviously, we've got to get all of our clamps installed, but yeah, I'm excited to see this guy in place. So what we're doing here with the lines is we are going to put a 90-degree festo right on the top here. So this will be sitting pretty close to the top of the fuselage in that little bump, and that's why we're going to use the 90-degree festo. We're going to have a 6 mil piece of tubing that's going to kind of run around like this and then come rearward, because the rear part of the plane is this direction, and that's going to be our fill line. So we need that to be flexible so the fuel containment device or bag can move up and down. So that's the reason for that. The pickup line here, I'm probably going to stretch a piece of 6 mil over top of that, just like we've done previously. So it's a little difficult, but we can stretch out a 6 mil piece of tubing because the inside diameter is 4 millimeters. So you got to heat it up and stretch it, but we'll get it installed over this. Safety wired, piece of shrink tube on there, and that'll allow us to go right to our fuel pump, which is perfect. So we won't have any breaks in this guy. We might have a festo installed or a T-fitting or something, or a barb fitting, but I'd like to keep this one piece if possible. So that is the bag. All right, so the fuel bag is installed. So easy, such a nice setup. We've got the fill loop, as discussed, going backwards, or well, in this case forwards, away from us, and looping around and then coming this way. So we're going to fasten it kind of here above the tank, and that back portion is going to be floating so it can move in and out. And I'll show you guys what I mean here by filling up the fuel bag with air. So I've got my compressor. I'm just going on the fill port here, and I will just inflate this guy with air so you can see what it looks like. So just do it nice and slow. And this also confirms that our fuel tubing setup for fill works as desired. So there we go. Great setup. Lots of room around it. And that's going to work out really well. The pickup line here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this fastened to the side wall, and I'm going to hold it, try and hold it in the center as best as possible. Really, it doesn't matter. It's more, I'm just trying to make sure there's relief on this fitting here, so I want it to be kind of centered. So I'm just going to get it, you know, fastened something like this, where it's just kind of hanging out in the middle. Turbine does come here, but it's out of the way of that fuel fitting. So yeah, very impressed. That's going to work great. I'm really happy with the setup. I think it's going to be a great setup for this aircraft as well too. Very impressive. All right, guys, and it is time to put the fuselage pieces together. So this is definitely a big step, and I'm pretty sure that we won't need to take them apart again, which is even better. So drop your end down. Awesome. So yeah, I think we've got good access in here to get the elevator servos done up. It's not ideal, but we will be able to get them done up without the engine installed, so that's fine. Everything else is done. We've got all of our fuel, plumbing and stuff done, tanks installed. So in this area, we're good. Yeah, so that's it. So we're gonna put this together, use lots of Loctite, of course, because this is not coming apart during regular use. And a big step accomplished. So for splitting the fuselage, it really wouldn't be that bad. I don't think you could do it without taking the engine out if you were looking to transport this plane without having it together. I think you'd be able to squeeze in there maybe, but if you had bigger arms, you wouldn't be able to get in there. So you're probably pulling the engine out if you really want to split it. So not the end of the world, but not super easy, of course. So all of our fasteners are loosely put in there, and now we're just tightening them down, and it's good. There we go. Big step accomplished. Now she's huge. All right, we've got the plane upside down, I think for the last time. And yeah, I think for the last time, we'll see. But we got our tail cone, turkey feathers, nozzle, whatever you want to call it, installed. That, of course, is pretty easy because we already pre-did everything. And now the afterburner is going to look pretty stinking cool because it's going to reflect off of the white paint, the ceramic BVM paint that we put on the inside. So this whole perimeter right here, that half-inch gap is going to glow like crazy when that's on. So that's really cool. You can see here we got lots of room in between the horizontal stab and our rods here for the chute door, so that is no problem at all. I think my sanding right here is going to be enough because although this is pretty close to the, the edge of the surface here, the servos are away from this surface a fair bit, so the arms go up at a decent angle, so I think we'll be fine. Pulled the tape off of my light here, so that's all done. Yeah, so things are going well. I do really like the quick release on this air brake because it opens everything up, and that's what we have the air brake open for right now, is to deal with the linear actuators, the Acutonics linear actuators. We need to get our wire and stuff all set up. So I've put 2 clips right here to hold the wires and run them behind in this this area right here, the former work. So we got both of those guys, the leads coming back here. We're going to bundle that stuff up together, and then we're going to run our wire forward to the rest of the stuff over here. So we just want to make sure this is protected and out of the way and everything. I'll likely just bundle this in shrink tube and then zip tie it to the former work right there. So then at least it's accessible, it's not buried anywhere. It's still very hidden, of course, you'll never see it underneath there. Yeah, so that's, I think, good solution. We've got the beautiful Hun flipped back over on its proper belly, and vertical stab's been installed. So hopefully for the last time, our horizontal stab and our vertical stab are installed. So we've laid the engine in there. Obviously we can't put the engine in yet until we get our elevator pieces, but at least we're placed in the right spot, and that is good. So last thing we're going to do tonight is I want to get our canopy glass in place. Reason for that is you want to do the canopy glass and have it sitting in place on the aircraft. You don't want to do it off the aircraft. And the reason for that is when it's on the aircraft, it's going to have a certain shape, and everything is going to be spaced properly, it's going to be shaped properly. And if you just do it off the aircraft and put, like, we use magnets, put magnets all over it and everything, go to put it on when it's dry, it doesn't work out. So that's why we want to do it on the aircraft. All right, it's pretty straightforward on this one because we've got the mold lines that are sort of visible. So I've marked out the split between the front and rear part of the canopy, and that's marked out here with the Sharpie, if you can see it on there. Yes. So we're going to, number one, split this in half, And then we're just gonna slowly cut this guy out. Obviously we're way too excess, so we're gonna be trimming it probably somewhere about here. But we're just gonna spend some time getting this trimmed and fit and ready to install. All right, so our front is fit here, and we're not ready to install that yet, but I'll show you how we go through this process. On the main canopy here, so we've cut out the excess just so it will sit on top of this shape here. So what I do is I get this lined up, you know, kind of as centered as possible and everything like that. And then what I do is just take my Sharpie. The Sharpie comes off with rubbing alcohol, right? So that's why you want to, it's totally fine to use the Sharpie. And then we're just gonna come down here and make our lines to follow. Now you gotta remember that once you put this on the inside of the canopy, it takes up more space. So this line right here is actually gonna come down a little bit further, and we may trim it more, but you want to obviously make sure you leave an excess amount. Don't cut it too short. Good, so now we take our scissors. It's very handy to have an actual pair of curved Lexan scissors, or whatever these are called. They're from the RC car world kind of thing. Just, it makes cutting this out a lot easier. So I'm gonna cut this out, come back and see how that fits. All right, so very nice fit on these guys. I did a little bit of extra trimming around the front section here, but everything fits very, very nice. So what we'll do now is we'll spend a little bit of time getting this stuff cleaned up. So we'll clean up the Sharpie around the perimeter just using rubbing alcohol, and then I'll show you the next step, which is magnet time. All right, and before you do any gluing, you want to make sure you treat the joints on these canopy pieces. So generally in the center section here, you're going to have the joint where the fiberglass overlaps. So I just take my drum sanding bit on my Dremel and just do a little bit of sanding there. That helps to get rid of the bump, which can be an issue. So do that front and back, and we've done that to both pieces. All right, so for this next step, this is where your magnets come in. So rare earth magnets, you can get them many, many different places. Amazon's a great resource. So we're gonna get this canopy laid in place. It's very important you don't use any like CA or anything on these canopies. If you do that, you're gonna probably get some hazing on it, which is no good. So the hazing is, it probably doesn't happen right away, but it will haze usually with, like, get smoky with the CA. So you wanna use canopy glue is what you wanna use. So first thing we'll do is just get our magnets in place on one spot. Now I've got two different size magnets here. I've got a big set and a little set. So I'll use some of both. And these magnets have been well used, so they're fairly gooped up, but really doesn't matter. Except some of them are stuck together, that's when it matters. So that's essentially what we're doing. We're just going around the entire perimeter and installing magnets. Now those magnets are going to stay there until this canopy glass is cured, so overnight. So we're going to put magnets all around the perimeter of both, if we have enough, and then we get our glue installed, our canopy glue, and then we install this in the plane. All right, so we've got our magnets installed all the way around our canopy glass. So when we do this, we try and sneak them away from the edge as much as possible, which we have lots of room on this guy, which is wonderful. So those are done all the way around. We used all of our magnets that we had, so that is good. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take some Formula 560 canopy glue. People ask me what's the best stuff to glue canopies on. That is it right there. And that's what it's called, Zap canopy glue. So good stuff. And basically it's water soluble. So if some does ooze out, you just clean it off with water. I use rubbing alcohol. So all we're going to do is we just take our Canopy glue and we just go around the perimeter. And when you do this, you'll see that it gets wicked in underneath the lens or the canopy, the glass, the clear plastic. So that's what you're looking for right there. And if we do get some that comes out, you just flip it over and clean it up with some water or rubbing alcohol. All right, so we've got our glue installed on both pieces all the way around, and it is very, very nice, done very well. So one of the keys with doing that little bit of sanding that I was talking about was if you can get this piece fit nice and tight, you generally don't have any oozing out. So that's kind of one of the things. It looks like we've got both of them and they're good to go. So next thing to do is install these guys on the fuselage. So I'll show you that part. And like I said before, this is that critical bit that ensures that it fits and cures properly. So don't skip this step. So we're just going to get things installed first. So I think when I put this on previously, it looks like there was a bit of a gap on the two pieces here. So that is the area that we want to probably pay attention to. Okay, so just being as gentle as possible, we're going to put our front pins in. There we go, so front pins are in. So yes, you can see here, if we installed this off of the airframe, we would end up with a very large gap there, which we can get rid of by doing a little bit of creative taping here. So we will tape this guy closed. Still going to keep our magnets on there, but we want to make a bit of room for the tape. So I'm just going to push that forward. And we're using automotive paint, tape here, which is nice and sticky. Nice. That is perfect. Awesome, there we go. So that's a good fit. Everything's nice and tight everywhere else, which is good. Just take a look around your guys' side here. Yeah, so everything's nice and tight. That joint's nice and tight, so when that cures now, it's gonna be solid. Now we've got a little bit of oozing here, so I'm gonna move these magnets back over top of our tape. Like that. And we can clean that joint up because when we pulled that forward, it exposed a little bit of our canopy glue. So I like rubbing alcohol, but you can use water, I think is what the instructions say. We'll just take that, clean that guy up. When it's exposed to air, it cures pretty quick. So this stuff actually was starting to firm up. It's just the stuff that's underneath the glass that takes a while to do its thing. So, but as long as we get that off, there, perfect. Awesome. So we're gonna leave this overnight, guys, and we'll come back to this tomorrow and we'll see what it looks like. It'll be nice and firm and solid, and lots accomplished today. Well, it's been about 6-7 hours since we glued the canopy glass in. It's curing nicely. The sun's shining in on this beautiful morning, and that's a great time to end video number 5 in the build series of the Composite ARF F100 aircraft. This thing is awesome, going together so well. I'm very happy with the progress so far. Next video, we are taking the big leap into the wings. Now the wings are fairly straightforward for like the surfaces and the light installation, but the biggest thing is going to be the drop tank installation. So that's a big one. We'll get into that, of course, in the next video, video number 6. Just want to give a shout out to channel members. Thank you, channel members, for doing what you do. If you're watching this and you're curious, what is channel membership? Well, channel membership is a paid thing, but channel members get early access to our videos. So often we have 1 to 2 weeks of videos uploaded to YouTube. Channel members get to see that before it goes live on YouTube. So thank you, channel members, for your support. And everybody, thank you for watching my videos. So thank you, guys. We'll see you in the next video. I'm very excited to see everybody at Turbines and Tumbleweeds in Sweetwater, Texas, October 2nd to October 5th, 2025. See you there.